And no, I'm not going to look. I'm not taking my eyes off that stump. And then next thing I know, a stick comes flying over my head, through the tree limbs. Now, I'm not going to take my eyes off of it. So after about 15 minutes, I'm sitting there staring at this stump, and I mean, it's starting to get pretty rough. I mean, they're hooping, whistling. They're all behind me, trying to take my eyes off that stump. I'm not going to do it. And then so, I'm getting pretty nervous because, I mean, it's limbs breaking. I mean, I got captures of it, and, and, and then all of a sudden the stump just goes, falls over. And when it falls over on its side, I can see the bottoms of the feet and I can see the face. And what that little one was doing was it was squatted down, had its feet together, and it was squatted down with its knees up in its chest, and it had its arms wrapped around its knees, and its head was sitting right on top of its knees. So from that distance, it looked like a stump, just a little stump. Well, the mistake I made then, and I don't to this very day wear a watch because of that very reason, was I looked down at my watch to see what time it was. And when I looked back up where that stump was, it was gone. And they had stopped throwing stuff and making noises.
But it made no sound when it left? I mean,
none.
You didn't hear it leave?
Not a sound. It just vanished. That's one thing that, in my 11 years, like I said, I've been 20 foot of one, and I had one in Mississippi. He was coming up to me. This is juvenile, and when I first, I see him. He shoots across the trail, and I thought it was a bear, and I reached down and grabbed my bear mace, and I'd left it in the truck, and so I'm walking backwards, and I got a light, one of the military lights. It's got a blue diode on it, and I'm shining that blue diode in his face. He's looking up at me. He's crawling on the ground like Spider-Man crawls up the side of a building. And I can see the fingers as they splayed, and he reaches out to set them down. And he didn't snap a twig. He didn't even look to see where he was putting his hands. He didn't make a sound. And I'm talking to him. I'm going, easy now. Don't hurt me. I said, I'm your friend. And the other three researchers, they're on the other side of this 7-foot dirt berm. They have no idea what's going on. They just know that I went back there because we'd seen eye shine, and I just want to know where the eye shine came from. And then when I turn to run, that's when it goes, Ma? And I stop. And I just turned around and went, what? And so I go around to the guys, other three researchers, and I'm just all excited. And come on, y'all, there's a damn Bigfoot back here. Come on. And I'm gonna take them back there and show them this Bigfoot. And they're like, no, they won't go. I said, what do you mean? This is why we come. It might be a sign of aggression. We don't want to do that. And I don't know what. The researchers they're all different, and some have their opinions, they're concrete on them. But as far as your question goes, they're family. I call them family units, and it usually made up of a large male, and he may have. I've not seen multiple females. Or anything, or even heard of multiple females. And I've heard a lot of stories. But, and they usually have one or two young. And I think some of these sightings that people are, when they cross roads and stuff like that, is maybe a young one, a young male that's been, pushed out, and he's looking for a mate. And that's how come he, has to cross the road. Um, I mean,
That's interesting.
I'm looking at an article here. I don't know if you heard of this, Paul, but this year they found a super colony of 1.5 million penguins that has stayed hidden for nearly 3,000 years. Have you heard about that?
no, can't say that I have.
That's a lot of penguins.
It was discovered because of being able to identify poop stains in the Arctic up there, I guess. But I hadn't read the entire. I'd seen the article before, and it just was opened up in a window here. But I guess my point being, there's so much that we don't know, and everybody thinks that we've discovered, But yeah, so that was just this year, 1.5 million penguins.
Over 25%, and I may be wrong on that number. It may be higher than that percentage, but that's just what I can remember hearing quoted before by other, researchers, that there's still 25% of land that's never been, explored. I mean, we've got satellites now that fly over and take pictures, but that doesn't mean there's been somebody in there stomping around. And I had a 3,000 acre hunting club, and that's not really big. Bankhead National Forest is 91,000 acres, and covers about 3 counties. And I can guarantee you, there's some spots in that forest that there's never been a modern human step foot in. We're creatures of. I mean, we'll stay on trails. We'll hike 11-mile trail, but not get off that trail. We'll and a lot of the guys that hunt in it, and I've had a lot of them say this to me. I've been hunting there all my life, and I ain't never seen nothing. Well, you ain't covered every single inch of it. And when you go in, they're already aware that you're there. You slam your vehicle door. When you pull up in your vehicle, slam your door, get out, and you smoke a cigarette, or we stink, we're noisy. When we walk through the woods, we make a lot of racket. And all they got to do is basically, and the wood knocks is like, if you hear one wood knock when you come in or coming out of an area, that is a century that is letting the group know there's someone coming, someone here. So, and then if you hear multiple knocks, that's like a warning. That's like a red alert. So I, when I shot the episode of Finding Bigfoot, and they asked me, they said, "Do you do wood knocks?" And I said, "Nope." And they said, "Well, why not?" And I said, "What makes you think that if they're the most elusive being on the face of this planet is going to give up his position?"
Right. Yeah.
I think it was World War II that they issued a lot of American soldiers these clackers, little pop 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 clackers, and it was because they were killing so many of their own people because they couldn't identify them. Friendly fire was killing them, and they give them these clackers, and they tell them, they say, whenever you start shooting, if you're getting shot at, just hit your clacker, and if they're friendly, they're us, they'll hit their clacker too. Well, the Germans and Japanese both caught on to that. So when they would kill, the U.S. soldiers, they'd take their clackers from them, the bodies. And so then they'd start, shooting, and so they just pull the clackers out and go clack, 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 clack. And, and our troops would go, "Oh, hey, that's some of our guys." And they'd stand up, It's just not smart to give up. If you're trying to be elusive, hidden, why would you give up your position?
Right.
it's not like that I'm going to go out there and beat on a tree, and they're going to look at each other and go, was that Ed? Was that Bob? you know,
Well,
call him back. They
um,
know where each other's at. Now whistling, I've had them do whistle locating is what I call it, and it's just one little simple, you know, you know, and I've heard one whistle to my left, and then all of a sudden one whistle to my right. And it'd be a little bit that one to the left would whistle again, and the one on my right would be closer. And whistle back. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out how to avoid, someone. And why break protocol? If there's only 4 or 5 of you in the group, and the main guy is just, he's over here next to you, and all of a sudden you hear this noise, and you go, that must be somebody, must be someone else that, came over. They're so strategic, and I learned this, like I said, in my 11 years, that they're throwing rocks. When they throw rocks at you, what's the first thing that we do when a rock hits the ground? We look to see what that was.
right.
Oh, and when we do that, we take our eyes off of an area where we were looking, and that gives them opportunity to move.
Sure.
And
So they're not really. You're saying they're not really trying to hit you. They're just trying to
Trying
distract
to
you.
distract.
that's
Right,
it.
exactly.
That is it. It's nothing more than a distraction. Um, I've had rocks thrown, and I'll play audio captures of this too, while sitting in the bed of my pickup truck with another researcher, and all of a sudden you hear a rock land in the bed of the truck. And what happens when that happens? We look down.
Right.
Yep.
And
Well, I wanted to ask you a question. You've worked with several researchers. Have you ever heard of Alabama booger monster?
there's so many researchers, and there's so many, but the Alabama booger monster doesn't ring a bell. I know boogers is a term that was used. It's been used for hundreds of years. That's where the term boogeyman came from.
Right.
But they call them woolly boogers, wood boogers. But
Stan, I've heard of that. That's, I think, Evergreen, Alabama. Isn't that a big foot area
Well,
down there?
I think it was in Conecuh County, Alabama. It was like claw marks on a tree, and I think that they were calling it Alabama booger monster or something like that. I had read something the other
I've heard
day
of
about that.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
well, claw
But
marks,
now,
you got to be careful about claw marks, because there are black bears and a small, what called honey bear, in the state of Alabama.
yeah,
And a black bear, when they claw a tree, you're going to have, 4, sometimes 5, gashes, and they'll be like a straight line. They'll be narrow. But now I've got pictures, and I'll share these as well at the conference, of where a Bigfoot actually clawed a cedar tree. And when he clawed that cedar tree, they're just as square as they can be.
Stan, he keeps referring to the conference. Do you mind if I go ahead and plug that a minute?
Absolutely, and I was going to ask y'all about that. Y'all put together a conference that's going to go on?
I'm a very blessed man in regards to having access to a beautiful venue up here, at Shelby, in Shelby County, Alabama.